Hello everyone, welcome to the third week of the 3 months Data Analyst Roadmap. In this video today we are going to talk about pivot tables and pivot charts and MS Excel data analytics. So without any further ado, let's jump in. So I have this employee data set in front of me. It has a lot of columns like employee ID, employee join date, department, salary, gender, work hours, tasks completed, job satisfaction, overtime hours, meetings attended, projects worked on, errors made, and the customer feedback. So we have this data set and it has 1000 rows that we can see here. So it has 1000 records and it has these other columns as well. So let's see how we can use pivot table to do analysis on this data set. To work on pivot table, you need to click on this table somewhere. But first of all, you have to convert this to a proper table. For example, you have this data set. You need to select all, Control A, and you need to come to format as table and select any of the given styles. It will automatically convert this table to a proper MS Excel style table. And after that, we can use this data set to do analysis using pivot tables. So I've already converted this to a proper table, and now I can click anywhere in this table and I can go to Insert tab and click on this pivot table. But before clicking on the pivot table, if I click on the recommended pivot tables, MS Excel already suggests some pivot tables that we can use for our analysis. But in this video, we are not going to use this. We are going to start from scratch. So let me click on this pivot table and I will select from table or range, because I already have this table. So I can select from table or range. So it has already selected the employee table, or if we want to select it manually, we can erase this. We can click this button and select the entire table from columns like this. Let me click here and click Control Shift right to select all the columns to the right, Control Shift down to select all the rows to the down. So again, if I select all the table, it will write employee here because the entire table name is employee. Now it is asking me whether I want the pivot table to be placed in an existing worksheet or I want to place it in a new worksheet. So in this existing worksheet, I have data, so I don't want to place the pivot table right here. I want to place it in a new worksheet. So let me select new worksheet and click OK. When I click OK, it automatically creates this new sheet by the name of sheet 1 and it places the pivot table here. The pivot table is empty. We can see that there is nothing in this pivot table, and we can name this pivot table as well. We have not named it yet, but we can name it as I'll show you how to name this. When I click in this pivot table, I see this pivot table field list. Let me expand this so we can see this. This is the field list of pivot table, and we can use this field list to summarize our data and do analysis. So here we have all the fields to the left side, and here we have the reporting sections. We have filters, columns, rows, and values. I'll show you how to use all of them. First of all, let's see how we can change the layout of this field list. If I click this settings, I can select field section and area section stacked like this, and the field section and the area section will be stacked like this. If I go to settings again, click the second option. This is the second layout, and the third option without any area section. The fourth option is also filter area section without the field list, and if I click this again, I see area section only from 1 to 4. But let's select the second one. I think this is the best one for us to do analysis. Now let me close this. Whenever we click on this pivot table, MS Excel automatically gives us 2 more tabs that we did not have before. The first one is called Pivot Table Analyze, that we are going to see later. The second one is the Design tab that we can use to design our pivot table. Let's go to Pivot Table Analyze first. If I click on this pivot table, I can rename this pivot table. Currently it's called pivot table 2, but let's rename it to employee by department. If I click enter, now we can see the name here, EMP by department. So if I click this, I've lost the field list because I closed that. Now if I click this pivot table section, I can come to pivot table analyze and click this field list option, and it will automatically open the field list for us. Now let's start some analysis. For example, I want to see that how many employees are in each department. So what I can do is to click on this department and drag it down to this rows section. It will place all the department names in this rows section inside this pivot table. Then I want to see the number of employees in each department. So I will drag this employee ID and place it under values. Now it says this is the sum of employee ID, but I don't want to see the sum. I want to see the count of employee IDs. So I don't want to see the total of the employee IDs because that does not make any sense. So what I can do is to click on this arrow sign, and I can remove this field. I can move it somewhere else, or I can go to value field settings. If I click value field settings, it opens this window. I can give it a custom name, for example, number of employees or EMPs and department. And I can select count, average, max, min, product, or any other function from this list, but currently we only need the count because I want to see the number of employees in each department. I can change the number format from here, that you can change from the home menu as well, but I can change it here as well. Let me click cancel and now click OK here. If I click OK, it shows that in engineering department we have 207 employees, in finance 208, 173, 196 and 216. So all of them make it to 1000 because we have 1000 employees in this list. Now I want to see that how many employees in each department are male and how many are female. So basically I want to see the data or the count of employees by gender. So I can click this gender and drag it to this rows section. Now it shows that in engineering department we have 207 employees. From 207 we have 121 male and 86 female. Similarly in finance department we have 208, from where we have 100 female and 108 male. So you can see all this data here. One thing we can do is to place this gender in columns. Instead of rows, we can place it in columns, and it will show like this. In engineering department there are 121 female and 86 male. So we can use these sections to arrange our data properly. I can bring this join date to this rows section and I can place it under department. When I place this under department, the MS Excel pivot table automatically creates some other fields for me. We can see it here. It created two fields. We already had the join date, which was in date format, and now we have days from the join date and months from the join date, and we can see them here under the rows section as well. We see join date, we see days, we see months. From this I just want to have months. I want to remove this join date, remove field. I want to remove this date, remove field, and I want to leave months there. So because now we have months, I can remove this field from here and I can move it to the filter section. And now this gives me the months option, and now I can filter by months. So instead of filtering by dates, I can filter by months. Let me select multiple, and these are all the months. So let me uncheck all, and I want to see data from January, February, March, April, May and June. If I click OK, it means there is no data for those months. So let's clear everything, and now let's select the last months. Let me select from August till December, and if I click OK, Now we see the data again. And if I want to select only 1 month, let me clear everything. Let's do not select multiple items, only select, for example, August. Just click on August and click OK. So in August we had these employees that they joined our company. From engineering department we had 101 female and 70 male, total 171. Then in finance we had 177, and so on. So this is how you can use the filter section. Let me remove this filter because we do not need it. So let's remove these fields from here. Now I want to see by each department, I want to see the customer feedback. So what I can do is to place the department under rows section. We already have that. So let's place the customer feedback under values. And it says that there are 207 feedbacks for engineering department because we had 207 employees there. But I want to see how many were positive, how many were negative, and so on. So what I can do is to place this customer feedback under column section and employee ID under values section. Again, it gives me the sum of employee ID, but I need only the count. So let me go to value field settings and go to count, click OK. Now this gives us a breakdown by customer feedback. In engineering department there are 60 employees for whom the customer feedback is negative, 68 employees got neutral, and 79 employees got positive. In finance department 66 were negative, 60 were neutral, and 82 were positive. So we can see the breakdown from here. If you are still with me, please like this video, subscribe to this channel, and add your questions if you have in the comment section so we can answer them. Now for each department, gender wise, I want to see the tasks they have completed. So I can do one thing, I can bring this tasks completed to the values section. It means in engineering department we have 2373 tasks completed, and for finance we have 2359, and so on. So we can select this entire column, go to home tab, and we can format this. For example, I want to format this like this. I want to add 1000 separator. I want to remove the decimal points so it looks good like this. Now let's talk about the column names. I can rename this by calling it department, and I can rename this by just calling it completed tasks like this, and so on. Now we can also modify this layout, but before working on this layout, let's talk about this grand total. We can remove this, or we can rename it. For example, we can call it total, or we can go to the design tab, and here we can say that off for rows and column. I don't want to have grand total, so I want to off this for rows and columns. Now it will be removed. Again, I want to go to the design tab and go to this subtotals, and I will say do not show subtotals. So subtotals that we saw here before, they are now off. I can also go to report layout and say that show in compact form, which is already in compact form, show in outline form like this, show in tabular form like this, and repeat all item labels like this, or do not repeat item labels. But I want to repeat item labels, so I can click repeat. Now we have these buttons that we can click on to expand or collapse the data. So let me expand everything, and I want to remove these buttons. So what I can do is to click on this, go to pivot table analyze, and remove the buttons. We have plus minus buttons, I want to remove them. So now we have a proper table. If I want to remove the field headers, I can remove them as well, but I want to have them. So this is the analysis. In engineering department we have 1356 tasks completed by female, 1017 tasks completed by male. Now sometimes we need to add calculated fields to our pivot table that we do not have in our data set. For example, we have a salary column in this pivot table, but I want to add a bonus column as well. So what we can do is, for example, I want to see for each employee their salary, and now I want to see a bonus here. So what we can do is to click on this fields, items and sets section under the pivot table analyze tab. So if I click this, it gives me these options, and now I want to create a calculated field. So I will click on that and I will say salary bonus. For example, I want to give 5% of the salary for each employee as a bonus. So I will write the formula here. I can double click on this salary to bring the salary column to the formula, and I multiply this with 0.05. That will be the 5% of salary. Let me click add, click OK, and that gives me the sum of salary bonus. So for 65,135 salary, the 5% is 3,257. This is how we can use the pivot table analyze to add calculated fields. For example, if we bring some changes in the data set, will that be reflected in this pivot table as well or not? For example, employee with 1010 ID has 65,000 salary. Let's change that in employee data set. So let's find 1010, which is the first one, and let's change the salary from 65,000 to 80,000. Let's now go to sheet number 1, and here we still have 65,000. But what we can do is to go to this pivot table analyze tab, and here we have a refresh button. If I click refresh, it will refresh both the salary and the bonus columns. And if we have multiple pivot tables, we can click on this refresh and click refresh all, then it will refresh everything here. Now let's see this salary not by employee ID but by department. So let me bring department here and see the salary and bonus. Now it shows sum of salary and bonus, but I want to see the average. So I will click on this value field settings, click on average and click OK to see the average salary of each department and average bonus of each department, like this. Okay, now I have department and average salary for each department. We can insert slicers for this pivot table as well that you have seen before. I want to insert slicer. I will click on this insert slicer, and now it gives me these options that I can use for filtering this data set. So let me click gender. You can check everything from here. For example, let me click gender and month. Click OK. Now it gives me two slicers, one for gender and one for the months. If I click male, it will filter this data by male and will show the average salary for each department by male employees. If I click female, and it will show it by female. I want to remove this filter. I can click this clear filter, and I can see for September, I can see for August, and I can filter this by these two slicers that we have added. Let me remove the slicers. I will click on the slicer and press delete button. Now I want to see the tasks completed by each department again. So what I can do is to bring this tasks completed to the values section and see how many tasks are completed by each department. Now we can change some of the settings from here as well. For example, if I click this filter button and go to value filters, I want to see top few departments. For example, we have 5 departments. I want to see top 2 departments by tasks completed. So I will click top from here, or we can see bottom as well, but now I want to see top 2 items by sum of tasks completed. So I want to click OK, and now it will show me the top 2 departments by tasks completed. Let me remove the filter, clear filter from department, and if we clear filter, then we will see all the data. I want to see the share percentage of the task completed by each department. So what we can do is to bring the task completed again to values section and click on the second one this time, Now show value as not no calculation, but I want to see percent of grand total. I want to see how much is the percentage of tasks completed by each department. So we can see that sales department has 22%, which is the highest. Then the second highest is engineering department, and the third one is finance department. So we can see the share percentage of each department by tasks completed. Let me close this field section. We also have recommended pivot tables here in the pivot table analyze, and we can click on that and insert some pivot tables. For example, we can have department and total salary. We can have customer feedback and total salary. We can have customer feedback and then sum of work hours, sum of overtime, and so on. Most of the times these tables will make sense, but some of the times the tables will not make sense. For example, we do not want to see the sum of salary by the customer feedback. So this is the table that we wanted. We can insert this. We can insert this, how many employees got negative, how many employees got neutral and positive. So this is a good table. We can see all these tables and we can insert them directly from here if you want. For example, I want to insert one of them. So I want to insert this one. If I click this, click OK, it will insert this table for me, customer feedback and count of employees. So 323 employees got negative, 306 got neutral, and 371 got positive customer feedback. Now for every pivot table that we have right here, we can insert a pivot chart as well. For example, let me give this sheet a name like customer feedback, and for this sheet let's rename the columns employees. So I can insert a pivot chart from here. We can insert pivot chart from this insert tab as well, from here pivot chart, or we can insert it directly from the pivot table analyze, and I like this pivot table analyze section. I want to insert it from here. So let me click pivot chart, and we can select any chart to show this result. We can select column chart, line chart, pie chart, or any chart that we want from this list, but currently the column chart makes sense. So let me click OK, and now it will give me this column chart. We have discussed the charts before, so let's remove these buttons, hide all field buttons, remove the legend, click on this plus sign. I don't want to see the legend here because it's already written negative, neutral, and positive. Let me change the title, for example, customer feedback. If I click this plus sign, I can show the data labels. I can also insert the data table if I want to, like this. So this is how we inserted a chart, a pivot chart. Now let's go to employee table. Again, I want to insert another pivot table. We have customer feedback in this sheet. I want to click on this table, go to insert pivot table, and now it will give me another pivot table option. So when I click OK, it inserts a new sheet and now gives us a chance to add another pivot table. This time I want to see the average salary by department, so I will add department in rows section, and I will add the average salary in values. So let me change the field settings, select average, and click OK. Now let's select this entire column and reformat this. So I have this option here. Let me remove the decimal points. So this is the average salary. Let's rename them department and salary, average salary. Let's go to design tab, remove the grand totals, and this is the table. Now we can go to pivot table analyze and insert another pivot chart from here. This time I will not add the column chart, but this time I want to add this bar chart. Yes, it's similar to column, but the columns are horizontal. Let's remove the fields. Let's remove the legend and let's rename this Let's give it a title. For example, this is average salary by department, and let's rename this sheet average salary. So this way you can insert as many pivot tables, pivot charts that you want. Let me close this field section. You can format this chart as well. If you double click, you will see this format chart area options pop up. You can format it from here, or you can go to this design and this format tabs to format your charts. If you select this pivot table and go to the design tab that you see here, you can change the style of your table from this given styles, or you can create a new pivot table style from here. So let me select this one. Similarly, you can click on banded rows to show banded rows, banded columns. You can remove headers, you can remove column headers or row headers, whatever you want. You can format your entire table from this design tab. You can also insert timeline. For example, if you have a date column in your data set, you can insert timeline, click OK, and it will give us this timeline. You have this timeline, and you can use this timeline to filter your data like this. So we do not have anything in January, we do not have it in July, we have it in August. So if I drag this to August, it shows the data, and if I drag it further to the right, it shows the entire data like this. And you can see that the chart and the table automatically updates when I drag this to the left or right. So if I drag it to the left till August, you can see the chart updates and the table updates. If I drag it to the right, same thing happens, both the chart and the table will update. You can also format the timeline. When you click on the timeline, you will see this timeline tab. You can format it from here. You can change the design, and you can also remove the headers from here. You remove the selection label, remove the time label, and remove the scroll bar. So you will have this thing. So I want to add the scroll bar, and I want to add time label, also the headers. So you can format your timeline as well. Let me delete this by clicking on this timeline and pressing delete button from my keyboard. So this is how we use pivot tables in MS Excel to do data analysis and summarize our data into different pivot tables. We can format pivot tables, we can add timelines, we can add slicers, and we can do a lot of more stuff using pivot tables in MS Excel data analytics. In the coming video, we will work on a full project where we will include the data cleaning process, data transformation, creating pivot tables as summaries, and then creating pivot charts, and then creating a full dashboard in MS Excel to show you how we can use pivot tables along with charts to create an interactive dashboard that you can use for showing your data and data analysis process. Now you need to use the same data set and show your data analysis, insert pivot tables, and show different data analysis from your own mind. I will not give you tasks because I want to see your mind, so how you can analyze this data. There are a lot of columns in this data set that you can use for your data analysis. I didn't do data analysis on all the columns because I left them for you. So perform the data analysis on these data sets and show your work on LinkedIn. Thanks for watching.
It's not a game, it's a